Humans have always made art, from the earliest pigments pressed onto cave walls to modern digital installations. The drive to create, observe, and judge beauty is an ancient, deeply ingrained human behavior. Yet, despite this millennial-long practice, the actual philosophical vocabulary to explain why we value these creations is surprisingly recent. The word aesthetic did not enter the philosophical lexicon until the 18th century. When the term was finally introduced, it created an immediate problem of definition. Does the term describe the physical properties of an artwork itself, or does it describe the internal, perceptual mechanics of the person looking at it? For centuries, aesthetic theorists have divided over these two opposing camps. One side attempts to define objective rules, form, and how well an object imitates reality. The other side focuses entirely on the viewer, analyzing subjective judgment, attitude, and personal experience. To understand how we appreciate art today, we have to look past the modern dictionary definition. We must map out the distinct, competing historical paradigms that built our current understanding of beauty. We begin in ancient India. Here, classical architecture, poetry, and dance functioned as active technologies designed to systematically induce specific spiritual and philosophical states in the audience. The sage Bharata codified this system with the concept of rasa. A rasa is an emotional flavor crafted by an artist and relished by a spectator. The goal is to evoke 8 primary human feelings, like delight or anger, representing foundational emotional flavors. Philosopher Abhinavagupta evolved this theory by introducing a 9th rasa, Shanta rasa, a religious feeling of profound peace. It represents ultimate aesthetic bliss, acting as the unifying string that gives form to the system, linking the 8 emotional states together like jewels on a necklace. This framework is governed by a pan-Indian philosophical triad: Satyam, the truth value; Shivam, the good value; and Sundaram, the beauty value. Together, these form the concept of the supreme. This establishes a clear hierarchy for evaluating artists. An adept who masters the strict grammar and rules of an art form is known as a Daksha, but one who works through the whole system and journeys ahead to become a law unto themselves is called a Mahana, or the absolute. Many perceive the writer Rabindranath Tagore as the quintessential modern example of a Mahana artist in literature. In this paradigm, art is evaluated by its power to systematically induce supreme emotional and spiritual states within the viewer. The Western tradition takes a distinctly different approach, beginning with the ancient Greeks, who tied aesthetic concerns directly to the morality of the state. Plato argued for the banal of poets and painters from his ideal republic, fearing their deceptive imitation, or mimesis, would corrupt rational thought. Aristotle countered this by defending art as a necessary instrument for character formation, providing a healthy emotional release known as catharsis. By the medieval period, thinkers like Thomas Aquinas established strict mathematical prerequisites for beauty. To be considered beautiful, an object had to possess objective perfection, appropriate proportion, and clarity. We can plot the history of Western art by mapping form and order on the horizontal axis and emotion on the vertical. Classicism demands stability, sitting firmly in the high-form, low-emotion quadrant. Compositions are depicted at rest. In stark opposition sits the Baroque period, arranged in unbalanced, vigorous motion using dramatic curves. At the peak of the vertical axis is Romanticism, prioritizing the uninhibited expression of overt emotion above scholarly rules. Up until the modern age, the Western paradigm evaluated art based on its structural form and its moral utility, whether it adhered to the rules or violently rebelled against them. In 18th century Britain, a rapid wave of scientific and philosophical inquiry fundamentally rewrote the established rules of observation. Philosophers began to ask a new epistemological question: how can we actually know that something is beautiful, and what exactly validates that judgment? The philosopher Francis Hutcheson provided a radical answer. He argued that aesthetic judgments involve no intellectual element and require no reflection on underlying causes or rules. Instead, Hutcheson claimed these judgments are purely perceptual. He argued that the origin of our perception of beauty and harmony is a distinct sense, common to everyone who makes them. Thinkers like the Earl of Shaftesbury and Joseph Addison expanded on this framework, defining taste as a kind of balanced internal discernment, a natural alignment with our sentiments. They introduced the concept of the association of ideas. This cognitive mechanism serves as the crucial bridge connecting the passive contemplation of a beautiful object to active human action. Through this philosophical pivot, beauty was severed from the physical object. It was relocated into the subjective, sensory, and cognitive experience of the viewer. By the 19th century in Europe, this subjective definition created an environment where artists began actively rebelling against any remaining expectations that their work had to be socially useful or moral. This culminated in the Aestheticism, or Decadent movement, defined by a single aggressive slogan: art for art's sake. Figureheads like Oscar Wilde argued that art should provide refined, sensuous pleasure. They believed it had absolutely no didactic purpose. It only needed to be beautiful. This philosophy quickly expanded beyond fine painting and high literature. It moved into the decorative arts, applying intense, stylized beauty to everyday utilitarian objects. This is a plate from The Grammar of Ornament by the architect Owen Jones. Seeking a modern style, reformers systematically studied global historic ornaments, synthesizing diverse geometries and Eastern influences to improve British design. This pure pursuit of visual pleasure dictated the production of aesthetic-style furniture. Pieces were characterized by ebonized wood, gilt highlights, and highly stylized nature motifs, like the sunflower inlay seen on this chair's backrest. The movement also popularized blue and white porcelain, importing and imitating complex Oriental architectural and landscape designs on dinnerware and tiles. This lack of moral responsibility led to direct clashes with older critics like John Ruskin, who maintained that art must be moral or socially useful. Despite the pushback, aestheticism finalized the modern transition. Art achieved total autonomy, existing independently of religion or state, crafted solely to trigger the subjective pleasure of the observer. When a modern viewer stands in a gallery today, attempting to understand a contemporary artwork, they are not operating in a vacuum. Art appreciation is often treated as an innate feeling, but it is actually a composite, learned skill, built directly upon the historical strata we have just explored. When we expect a film or a painting to transport us or hit us with a specific emotional flavor, we are invoking the ancient Indian logic of rasa. When we critique a photograph's balance and clarity, or praise a sculpture's uninhibited rebellion against form, we are deploying the metrics of Western classicism and Romanticism. When we accept that an installation doesn't need to teach us a lesson, we are inheriting the 19th century mandate of art for art's sake. And our firm belief that beauty is entirely a matter of personal taste is a straight line drawn from the 18th century empiricists. The modern aesthetic experience is highly dynamic. It acts as a mirror, reflecting both the society that forged the artwork and the subconscious of the individual standing in front of it. By mastering this historical lexicon, viewers gain the vocabulary to decode a canvas. They also gain the tools to understand the complex